Welcome back to the Grace-Filled Classroom. I'm so glad you're here for episode 2, where we'll be diving into a topic I'm incredibly passionate about: learning styles, what they are, why they matter, and how they apply to everyone. Before we jump in, I just want to say thank you to those of you who listened to the intro episode that launched this podcast last week. That short welcome shared the heart behind this podcast, which is my desire to help you support every learner with faith, fun, and flexibility. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever sat through a professional training or staff development session that seemed to go on forever, and you walked away thinking, what did I even learn? Maybe you looked around and saw eyes glazing over, phones being scrolled through, or quiet whispers about how much longer it would last. Or maybe you've been on the other side, leading a session while your audience checked out, and you wondered, is anyone even listening? Or perhaps you've had a child or student who just couldn't grasp something, no matter how many times you explained it. But then everything clicked when they saw a picture, built it with their hands, or sang a silly song. That's not a failure, it's a clue into how we learn. And today we're diving into why those clues matter more than ever. Maybe you've noticed how you learn best, by writing notes, listening to a podcast like this, moving your body, or sketching something out. These aren't just quirks or habits, they're insights into how you're uniquely wired. When we understand learning styles, we stop trying to force a one-size-fits-all approach, and we start teaching, leading, and connecting with intention. Let's start by answering the big question: what exactly are learning styles? Learning styles refer to the different ways people best receive, process, and retain information. It's how our brains are wired to absorb and understand the world around us. While most people use a combination of learning styles, many tend to have a dominant preference that helps them make sense of new concepts more quickly or deeply. There are 4 main learning styles I want to highlight in this episode: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and reading-writing learners. Visual learners absorb information best when it's presented visually. They benefit from things like images, diagrams, color coding, mind maps, and charts. These are the people who might remember where something was on a page, or draw a picture to explain what they've learned. Auditory learners process information by hearing it. They do well when they can listen to explanations, engage in discussion, or use rhythm, music, or repetition to retain information. They may talk through their thinking, or remember something better after hearing it out loud. This is actually the most commonly used learning method in traditional classrooms and training sessions, which is great for some, but not always effective for everyone. Kinesthetic learners need to move, touch, and do. They learn through hands-on experiences and physical activity. These are the students who seem to learn best when they're building something, acting it out, or moving around while processing information. Traditional sit and listen instruction can be especially tough for them, often leaving them feeling misunderstood or even mislabeled as distracted. Reading-writing learners prefer information through written words. They learn best through reading text, writing notes, making lists, and rewriting or organizing information. They tend to thrive in environments where they can interact with printed material, books, journals, worksheets, and written instructions. In fact, many traditional school settings are built with this style in mind, which can give these learners an advantage in academic performance even when they're not the majority. In my own experience, especially working with younger children, I've seen the most success using strategies that support visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. These styles seem to resonate deeply with children in early and elementary learning stages, especially when lessons are layered to include more than one style at a time. More info on how to do that in upcoming episodes. It's not as hard as you think. That said, I've also seen reading and writing learners shine, particularly in upper elementary, middle school, and into adulthood. Many older children and adults naturally gravitate toward reading and writing as their preferred way of learning, especially in structured academic or professional settings. Many, not all, but many times they are multimodal learners who benefit from layered instruction just as much. The key is this: most learners aren't just one style, they're a blend. And when we teach using multiple modalities, we open the door for more connection, deeper understanding, and longer lasting learning. Isn't that what everyone wants? It's not about checking every box. It's about reaching every learner. And honestly, I've seen this firsthand, not just in classrooms, but in trainings and professional settings too. I've sat through a lot of trainings and professional development sessions over the years. Some were great, and others that made me want to get up and walk out of the room. And not because I didn't care, but because it just wasn't clicking. I wasn't engaged. I needed to move, and I know I'm not alone in that. The same thing can happen to our students, and that's why understanding learning styles is so important. In upcoming episodes, I'll be diving deeper into multimodal learning and teaching, sharing more real-life examples of how to bring it to life in your classroom, homeschool, or even professional training settings. But today, I want to start with a moment that really shaped how I personally view learning. Back when I was teaching kindergarten, I had a group of students who just weren't grasping the sound letters made. I tried everything I knew at the time, showing them pictures of the letters, saying the sounds out loud, repeating it again and again, using visual and auditory strategies. But it just wasn't sticking. They were frustrated. Honestly, I was too. I knew they were capable. So what was missing? Then one day, instead of trying the same thing again, I switched it up. We added movement. We traced letters in the air, jumped as we said the sounds, formed letters with our bodies, and sang silly songs. That's when the light bulbs started to turn on. These kids needed to move. They were kinesthetic learners. And once I met them where they were, everything began to change. Later, when I went through training for literacy links, I saw this truth come to life in an even deeper way. We didn't just teach letters. We layered the learning. Students saw the letter, heard the sound, and moved their bodies to form each one. They weren't just seeing or hearing letters. They were experiencing them. It wasn't about choosing one learning style over another. It was about weaving together visual, auditory, and kinesthetic strategies to make learning stick. And the results were undeniable. Once I fully embraced that approach, 100% of my kinders in 2 back-to-back years knew all their letters and sounds, and they were reading before they left my classroom. When we meet learners where they are, when we teach in a way that reflects how God uniquely designed them to learn, that's when transformation happens. And just when I thought I had a handle on it, another moment opened my eyes even more. One day, while working one-on-one with a student, I could tell he wasn't quite connecting with what we were doing. He seemed distracted, his attention drifting, and I started to feel that all too familiar frustration creep in. But then he looked up at me and said, "Can I just draw it instead?" And that's when it clicked. He wasn't distracted. He was visual. Drawing helped him process what he was learning. That simple moment reminded me, learning isn't about compliance. It's about connection. And when we give kids or adults the freedom to express what they know in their own way, we discover just how capable they really are. Moments like that have stuck with me, not just because they worked, but because they revealed a bigger truth. How we learn isn't one size fits all, and it isn't static. It changes as we grow. And whether we're teaching a preschooler, leading a classroom, parenting, or training a team, the first step to leading well is in understanding who's in front of us. From a faith lens, it's a reminder that we were each fearfully and wonderfully made, including the way our brains process, respond, and learn. When we lean into that truth, we can teach, lead, and support others with more grace and intention. Let's talk about how learning styles show up across different age groups, because they do shift and develop over time. Toddlers and preschoolers usually learn best through kinesthetic and visual methods. Think hands-on play, colorful visuals, movement. That's their language. As kids move into the elementary years, they often benefit most from multi-sensory learning, a blend of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic strategies. This is a great time to layer your instruction with pictures, songs, and hands-on tasks. How many elementary classrooms have you been to that are utilizing a multi-sensory learning approach? Not many. And do you think that has anything to do with the struggle that we're seeing with our students? By the time they hit the preteen or teen years, you'll notice many of them start developing a clear preference, often leaning more toward auditory learning or reading and writing. And as adults, we typically rely more heavily on our preferred learning style, whether that's visual, auditory, reading, writing, or kinesthetic. But here's the key. Most people are still multimodal, even if one stands out. So what does that mean as we grow? As kids become teens and teens become adults, learning preferences may shift, but the need for engagement and variety does not go away. In fact, it often becomes even more important, especially when we step into professional roles. And this doesn't just apply to kids. In professional development settings, learning styles matter just as much. Have you ever sat through a 3-hour training and left feeling drained or distracted? Adults often tune out during long lectures. We need engagement too. That's where visuals like slides and diagrams come in. Discussions and storytelling help us connect the dots. Breakout activities or simulations let us try things hands-on. And giving time for journaling or self-paced notes supports those who learn best through writing. So whether you're a teacher, a manager, or a facilitator, consider weaving in multiple styles with every lesson and every training to boost connection and retention to make sure we are meeting every student's needs. And actually, I've been thinking a lot about creating resources and training specifically for leaders. presenters, and corporate teams to help them tailor their approach in a more multimodal way. If that's something you'd be interested in, or if you have ideas or needs in that space, I'd love to hear from you. And as we think about the people we serve, whether it's students in a classroom, teams in the workplace, or families in our homes, it's worth pausing to remember why this matters. Because it's not just about productivity or performance, it's about people. And as a person of faith, I believe it goes even deeper than that. Psalm 139 tells us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. That includes the way we think and the way we learn. When we take time to understand learning styles, we're not just being better educators or leaders, we're honoring God's design in every person. When we approach learning this way with grace and intention, we create space for every person to be seen, valued, and supported in how they're wired. Imagine what that can do. So how do we actually use this? Start simply by observing. Pay attention to how your child's student or even a team member approaches learning or problem solving. Do they light up when they get to draw something? Do they talk it out? Do they need to move while thinking? Do they need a combination? Then give them options. Let them explain their thinking, draw it, act it out, build something, or even journal about it. And here's a powerful question to ask yourself. I've thought about this for many years. Does it really matter how they show you what they know, if the goal is true understanding? Think about that for a little bit. When we focus on comprehension over conformity, we give people the freedom to show their knowledge in a way that actually sticks. It's not about everyone doing it the same way. It's about finding the way that works for them. And if you're not sure where to begin, I've got you covered. The first step in effective instruction is truly understanding your audience, right? Whether you're teaching a child, leading a classroom, or training a team, how can we teach well if we don't first know how they learn? Take the Learning Styles quiz. It's linked in the comments. It's quick and helpful, whether you're figuring out how your child learns, how you learn, or how to lead your employees more effectively. This simple step can open the door to more connection, less frustration, and deeper understanding. It's a small tool, but it can have a big impact. Because when we take the time to understand how someone learns, we're doing more than just improving outcomes. We're building connection and trust. And it's not about labels, it's about love. When we take the time to understand how someone learns, we're creating more than just good teaching. We're creating an environment of grace, belonging, and true diversity. Diversity isn't just about what we look like or our abilities. It's also about how we think, how we grow, and how we process the world. When we honor different learning styles, we're saying, I see you. I value how you were created, and I'm willing to meet you there. How powerful is that? And remember, you don't have to do it all perfectly all the time to make a difference. Trust God to fill in the gaps. When we lead with that kind of intentionality and compassion, it creates a ripple effect. One that can transform classrooms, workplaces, and relationships. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a fellow parent, teacher, or leader? And don't forget to take the Learning Styles quiz. It's quick, eye-opening, and a great first step to better connection. Be sure to subscribe because next week we're diving into what each learning style looks like in real life, practical tips, and creative ideas you can use right away. If there's something specific you'd love to hear more about, I'd love to know. Message me or drop a comment. Your insight helps shape this space. Thanks for listening, friend. May God guide you with wisdom and fill your days with peace. I'll see you next time in the Grace-Filled Classroom.